Welcome to another episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. I am your host, Mitch Lafon, brought to you, of course, this week by the Heavy Montreal Festival taking place August 7th, 8th, and 9th in beautiful downtown Montreal at Parc Jean Drapeau. This year we've got Slipknot, Faith No More, Korn, Iggy Pop, Lamb of God, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention our 80s bands, Lita Ford, Warrant, Dokken, and, of course, Testament. Joining me this week, Joe Holmes, formerly of the David Lee Roth Band, and Ozzy Osbourne, and Michael Angelo Batio, who spent some time with NITRO. And to discuss all of this is the one, the only, Bill Leverty of Firehouse. Good day, Bill.
Great to talk to you, Mitch. Thank you so much for having me on this episode. What a great honor it is to be on the episode with two phenomenal guitar players.
Yeah, it's the guitar heavy episode. I mean, I had to, right? Makes sense.
Oh, total. And Joe, I actually got to meet him very briefly when Ozzy was rehearsing at SIR in Los Angeles. We were recording our third album. Ron Nevison was producing it, and Ron said, "Hey, Ozzy just invited me to come on over and see their rehearsal for a minute." And I asked if I could bring you guys, and would you want to come? And Michael and Perry and I came on down, and we got to meet Ozzy, and Joe, Ron Nevison said to Ozzy, "This is Bill from Firehouse." He said, "Oh, hello, Bill from Firehouse," in that Ozzy voice, and I was like, wow. We had the same publicist at Epic Records, so we had that kind of connection. So I talked to Ozzy briefly, and Ron was there, who produced The Ultimate Sin. But over there in the corner was their new guitar player, Joe Holmes, who was just unplugged at the moment, and I just heard his right hand and his left hand were so fluid together like Buddy Rich snare beats going, and I was looking at him going, how in the heck is he doing that? And, I walked up and I said, "Man, I love your playing. Nice to meet you." And he was, "Oh, thanks so much." I knew he was focused on getting the rehearsal going again, but he was a super guy and an incredible guitar player.
Oh, an incredible talent. And of course, listen, after he finished with Ozzy in 2000, he took some time off, and you'll hear in the interview that it was, of course, to attend to the birth of his daughter, and then his father got ill, and he stayed out of the limelight to take care of his father. And to me, that's the most respectable thing. Family first, right?
I didn't know that. That is so admirable, and
yes.
The fact that he puts family first like that, I have a huge respect for him, and I did from the moment I saw him play and heard him play, and just meeting him. He was a super nice guy. So, yeah, man, that's really cool.
It really is. Now, of course, you've also got some new music coming our way. Why don't you tell the fans a little bit about it?
Oh, thanks, man. I've been putting out a song at a time. Instead of waiting until I have 10 of them and putting out an album, I put out one song at a time and just release it on iTunes and Amazon and CD Baby. And I've also been putting it out on my own website, Leverty.com, where you can just push a button and you can download it immediately. The latest song that I put out is called Strong, and it's kind of a straight ahead hard rock, big rock kind of sound. And it's got Michael Foster playing drums on it and Keith Horn playing bass on it. And I'm doing the other stuff. And thanks for mentioning it. I hope people stop by and check it out at Leverty.com.
Yeah, I really dig it. I had a chance to listen to it. In fact, you sent it to me. It's a great, great track. And again, what amazes me is, here's the guitarist of Firehouse. But the voice, you have gotten this hidden talent that people don't know about, right? This voice. I first heard you do Deuce on the Kiss tribute album, and I thought, oh, hey, listen to that. Not only can he play guitar, he can sing like we don't want to say those nasty words, but he can sing like a bugger, right? And here you are again. Something you're proud of, the whole singing? Is that you're going to do more of it?
Oh, man, thank you so much for mentioning that. I've been working on my voice for a long time. I've always loved singing, but when you're in Firehouse and you got CJ Snare singing, what do I need to sing for? The guy wakes up and he can sing the phone book and he sounds great, But, I've always loved singing, and there's a lot of songs that I write where I go, I'm talking to myself right now. I go, I'd kind of like to sing this one myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've done a few of those in my past. This is my 5th solo album I'm working on. I've released 4 so far, 3 of which are vocal albums, one's instrumental. But this 5th one is, all original stuff. My last one was all cover tunes from my childhood, so I did a bunch of songs from the 70s, And so I do it in my spare time, and I seem to have a lot of spare time around 3 a.m. when I can't sleep, and I'll come down here and start fiddling with stuff, and then the next thing I look up, it's 10 a.m., and it's time to get up. So that's life around here.
Hey, 10 a.m. is not a bad get-up time, but hey, there you go. Why don't we sit back and listen to Joe Holmes, formerly of Ozzy Osbourne's band, and of course David Lee Roth. New band is Farmikos. New album just came out. Like you, it's on CD Baby, it's on Amazon, it's on Google Play, and all that wonderful stuff. Here's Joe. We are speaking with Joe Holmes. Joe, you have a new band called Farmikos.
Yes, I do.
And of course, let me say hello first, but we'll get right into it. Album was supposed to, or the project was talked about as far back as 2012, 2013, and it just came out. So just explain what the delay was, how it came together, all that wonderful stuff.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, it actually, we started working on it. I've been with Robbie, the singer, now for about 3 years, but starting in...
And he was in Laidlaw.
Yep, Robbie Locke. He's from Arkansas, and we've been together for about 3 years now, and but it started, it goes back to about 2003, 2004 when I started, I actually, where I get my guitars worked at, I met a guy, Brett Hoffert, that I started doing, finishing my songs with him, and I had a bunch of riffs, and he'd come over and we would just hang out, and I talked him into singing, and he's really great with words, and so anyways, we would work these songs out, and then around 2004, I ended up having I have a daughter, 10-year-old daughter, and it would kind of, the writing fizzled out a little bit there, and so I had all these riffs from way back then, and 2004 I had my daughter, and then shortly after that my dad got ill. He ended up breaking both of his hips, and then he got dementia with Lewy bodies. So it was me and my sister that were, seeing him every day. So a lot of these riffs were from back in the day, and then it's really cool because some of the stuff that's Brent, like there's a few songs, Kings of Dust. Mm-hmm. It's like Brent's verse with Robbie's chorus, Spoon and Son, same thing. So we married both worlds together, and songs like Am I One, that's a newer one that was just written like a couple of years ago, a year ago, and that's me and Robbie. And and then there's like the acoustic song, Facing East, that was recorded back when was written when my daughter was born. And I used to play that for her all the time. So a lot of the stuff has been sitting around, and it's great to finally, see it get out there. But then when we started recording this stuff, I have like Robert's playing bass on it, and all the guys that have been playing out there are all touring and doing different things. So, sometimes I was waiting 6 months for somebody even to play a part on it. Right. So what's really special about this thing too that amazes me is that if you listen to it, it sounds like it was done in like a blocked out month period of time, and there was so many different sessions, but it's real consistent and really. I'm really proud of it. There's not one thing I would change on it. I really honestly can say when I listen to it, there's nothing I would change. Right. And we recorded it on the 2-inch machines, the analog.
Yeah, the old machines, the 2-inch tape.
Yeah, and then we used Pro Tools in case we had to edit stuff and
fly stuff in and stuff.
Yeah, but it's all really organic, man. I leave every note on it. In the beginning of a Scapegoat, before the solo, right. you hear my tubes blowing up. They go, they arced, so you'll hear that noise go, and then the guy thought they caught on fire, but they didn't. But so, anyways, I used these same tubes from touring with David Lee Roth, Ozzy, all that stuff. It was that same head. and I never wanted to change them because I always thought it was going to change the head, the tone of it. So,
Right.
So then I ended up plugging into a backup head. Well, I ended up going down, getting a coffee, came back up, and then we put the track up, and we heard that squeal, and we just said leave that, and just started after that. And then the stuff on Sound of My Gum, where you hear like after the first solo before it's going into the chorus, where the strings are hitting the pickups. So we left every noise on there, and it really came out great.
Yeah, it gives you that authentic, old school kind of recording quality, which is very warm. You got to love that. The obvious question then is, if you've had these songs sitting around for 10, 11, 12 years, why not put them together sooner? Because you left Ozzy's band and then you sort of just disappeared. So maybe we can sort of look at that. What happened? Why did you go away?
Oh, well, I could say, so after like 2001,
right.
I ended up, because before that, before Ozzy, and then before Ozzy, I was doing my own band thing, and then the David Lee Roth thing, I was constantly, even just, you're rehearsing, you're always going, and then in 2001, because I got offers, I got calls from other bands, but at that point, I ended up buying a house, I got married, and both of our clocks were ticking, so it was like I wanted to have a child, so it was like now or never to do it. And so we ended up, I have a daughter, 10-year-old daughter, Haley, and so that was it. And then for 3-4 years, I said I wasn't going to tour. I was like, man, I don't want to, I want to stay here and be around her, because I'd been gone so much before that. And then that's when I told you my dad ended up getting ill.
Right.
So I would have came back out a lot sooner, and I wish I would have, because that's just these ideas right now. I've been going through so many, because I'm already working. I've got 5 mapped out for the next one. Okay. And but there's so many. I'm going through even tapes of old stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, so many really cool riffs and ideas that are out there that I have here that But actually, I came up with something just recently, a couple of weeks ago, that it's one of the heaviest, sludgiest riffs that I played it for Robbie over the phone. He said the hair on his arm stood up. So I love coming up with fresh new stuff too.
So you've got so many. I was just going to say, you've got that fire now. So this is not a one-off. You're good to go now.
Oh yeah, and well, we're in a unique situation too, because I want to put the band together, and we're looking at different guys right now. Mm-hmm. But I could keep it going and have the same chemistry of what was on this last record, and then put a band together after, and then do nothing but tour. Because I'd like to try and get another record. I still have to let this one run its course and grow a little bit more. But I'm going to just start, like, in the next month or two, I'm going to start going in and just start putting stuff to click tracks and mapping stuff out again. Just start doing the preliminary stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to do another one, and I'm excited. I'd love to play live with this stuff too, because these songs sound so good. They're going to sound twice as heavy live. Right. So it's really going to be fun. They're really set up for live too. They just got those sick grooves and and everything. But I've checked out a couple of guys that I've liked, but and you can't blame them. But these guys are in different bands, and they're all doing stuff that I want someone that's got the same attitude as me and Robbie, where we're just live, breathe, and sleep in the Farmikos stuff, But these guys have to make livings, so they're doing multiple things, so we'll see. Whichever, I'm game for whatever falls into place. I'm open for whatever, but I'm going to be real productive, and I want to just keep creating, and I want to do it right. I want to be able to go out there and tour, and we're at like the infant stage still, so it's getting there where people are really digging it, and people are saying come here, come there, but it's still got to grow more so we can get out there and do it for real.
Do you look back at the last 10 or 15 years and think of opportunities that were missed and think, oh my God, I should have just stayed as current as possible?
No, because for me, you know what? It actually might have been a blessing for me, and even Robert said this to me before. It's good to have Mysterious been out of the way, but it gave me time to. Even when I've been gone, I've been on my guitar. I'm always around the guitar. I play, like it's funny. Like I get up, like this morning, I took my daughter to school with my wife, and I come back home and I hit it. I'm on the guitar at like 8:30 in the morning. So by like noon, I've already got a few hours in there. And I used to be up all night, and I'm really productive in the morning now. So whatever works, but that's been my routine for the last few years. But so I've got to really hone in on the guitar a lot more too, you know.
Right.
So I feel like I've really grown on the instrument, and I'm going to continue, you know, because it's a lifetime journey. I mean, this is, you know, it's a lifetime journey of. I'm a student of the guitar, so I never put it down. When I've been out of the public's eye and stuff, I was always still really dedicated to my instrument.
Yeah, because there was sort of a perception that, and maybe for the lack of a better word, you sort of got a stage fright. You got to this level with David, and you got to this level with Ozzy, and then you sort of disappeared. So there was almost this public perception of, oh, he can't handle the limelight, and disappeared. And
Oh no, I heard I was dead. I heard I was born again, which I'm not dead. I'm talking to you, and I was baptized Catholic. I'm still the same guy that I was back then, you know. So and there were situations like, even like after the Dave tour, I was hired for the tour, and at the end of the tour, you know, I had been working on riffs like, you know, the Fragile riff, the gotta get that riff.
Yeah.
Well, that's a riff that I wanted to show Dave, you know, but I never even got to show him any ideas that I had. They handed me a cassette of like 5 blues songs that they wanted me to do to go in the studio, and that wasn't really the direction that I you know, wanted to go or pictured myself going, and they could get someone like Steve Hunter to do it.
Oh yeah, Steve's great.
He's incredible. So, you know, he's authentic with it, you know. I mean, I love blues, and Dave really introduced me a lot to blues, and I thank him so much for that. But, you know, I just mix all the styles together,
When you were working with David Lee, did you get a chance to meet John Regan?
John Regan?
The bass player.
No.
Okay, yeah, because John played on that album as well, but I guess...
The one after A Little Ain't Enough?
He played on A Little Ain't Enough, and then he played on... Yeah, he's, you know, he was Peter Frampton, but...
Yeah.
That aside, let me just ask you, if I can, about the David situation. You came in to replace Jason Becker.
Yep.
And we all know what happened with Jason. He was diagnosed with ALS, and he was going to be the next, you know, hotshot guitarist. And unfortunately, the health. Did that add any burden on you or any extra stress? Did you feel bad about it, or is it just, hey, a gig's a gig? And
no, absolutely. I mean, I would have rather him done the gig, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. And now let me tell you, he was an amazing player. I mean, I had to learn songs like that Showtime, and it's jaw dropping, you know. He was incredible, you know. And I actually met him the day that I went in there to play, to audition. There was a line of guys outside. It was at Dave's house in the basement. And when I was out, you know, I went there, and you know, he was down there, you know, and he was sitting up against the drum riser. So, and I don't remember if I knew he was ill. I didn't know what was really going on, because they ended up, when I got the gig,
right,
they had another guitar player, Desi, that was playing, that did like 5 shows too. So they were trying the 2 guitar things, sort of, I don't know, maybe because, you know, on the record, they had the Steve Hunter, I don't know if he played on it or did some writing on it, and Jason. So, I just went in there and, you know, learned. I know I did. I know the first song I did was Panama.
Right.
And when I did it, I see Dave smiling, so it was cool. You know, felt good. And then the second song was Yankee Rose, and then I did part of Gigolo, and that was it. And
then you had the gig.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they said that after that they cut the line off and they went and had like Mexican food. One of the guys that works for them. So.
Hey, listen, if you can smoke Panama and you can smoke Yankee Rose, yeah, you definitely deserve the gig. Those are not easy songs.
Oh, no. And then, you know, for me, it was just a great experience, because I had to learn, I mean, after that, man, just learning all that stuff, and just even like all the old Van Halen, because I was brought up on Randy.
Right.
That you know, and I loved Eddie, but I was brought up on the Randy. It was Randy Rhoads and Michael Schenker back in the day. Mm-hmm. That Strangers in the Night record, and then I got to take lessons from Randy, and those were my biggest influence. So getting to go in there and learn the Eddie stuff, man, I had just such a respect for him. After, it was just incredible, and then the Steve Vai stuff and the Jason Becker stuff. So it was there was a lot of songs to learn. I wanted to almost throw the guitar out the window when I had to learn Gigolo, though, because I couldn't hear the chords, the changes and stuff, and it was like, what the heck, you know, it took me like a weekend to learn that. But after I learned it, I was so grateful that I did learn it, you know, and Dave always would throw stuff at me. Like, he made me learn a Blue Jean Blues by ZZ Top one time that I learned real authentic that I played at the sound check, and, you know, and then one time I had to learn a Clint Black song. I was like, what am I learning a Clint Black song for, you know? But it was really, he's an encyclopedia with the
music,
yeah. Blues and stuff. A very smart guy, and I, you know, I had a great time. It was a great learning experience for me. And set it up for me with the Ozzy thing, you know, really getting to play live and stuff.
But what was it like with David? Because, you know, there's been talk of Dave being more of a showman and less of an actual singer, and it's more about jumping up and down and running around. And was that hard sometimes to stay in pace with him? Was he? I've heard that he's difficult to work with. I mean, what was the experience for you?
Man, I had a great experience, and I mean, he was real personable with me. I mean, I had some great times with him, and I think he's a great performer, and I love his voice. So I was like, you know, I love all that old Van Halen stuff.
Agreed.
And, yeah, I love it. So.
And now you also mentioned Randy Rhoads. Of course, Randy was your teacher. He you know, you took lessons from him.
Yeah.
What was that like? What you know? I mean, it's Randy Rhoads, right?
Yeah. Well, this is it. I had this guy that got into my life for a couple weeks. A guitar player guy. He was older than me. That came around. I lived in the San Fernando Valley. I still do, but I lived when I lived at my parents' house. I was 16 when I think this guy came around, in 15, 16, and we used to have a music room and a garage, a jam room, and he popped in my life for like 2 weeks, enough time to take me to a Quiet Riot show. He was taking lessons from Randy, to see Randy, and then I never saw the guy again after that. And you know, 2 weeks after seeing Randy at the Starwood, you know, I'm over there taking lessons from him, and man, it was so intimidating. Like the first time I went there, my sister went with me, and we got there early, so he was teaching someone else in the room, and I'm not kidding. I really wanted to leave and come back at another time, because it just this massive sound coming through those little practice amps in there, and just what a great player. And I even stopped going to school for like 43 days in a row after it. I started taking lessons from him, and I was like, that's it. This is what you know, I'm not going to school anymore. I'm just going to play guitar. And my dad was cool with it. My mom was the one that was, you know, crying and gonna have a nervous breakdown. So after like 40, it was like, I don't know exactly, it was like around 43 days, and I ended up walking back in there, and they ended up calling my parents when I was in class, and my parents came down and to the principal's office. They brought me into the principal's office and showing all these report cards that you know, and all this stuff. So anyways, they wanted to send me to a different school because I'd missed so much time. And then I was like, well, then I'm just not going to go to school. And they have to try and keep you in school. So they made it work to where I got to, you know, go back into school. And it was cool because my dad, right before he ended up going, we're from New Jersey, and he was back in New Jersey, but before he left, he bought me this Marshall amp. So when I got out of the principal's office, he's all, when you get home, I want to hear that amp. So my dad was just so, my mom was too, but my dad was so supportive. He used to go to my Randy Rhoads lessons, and he was just the best. So, I mean, he ended up, bought me equipment and sold his car, and he was taking the bus to work at one point. So it was the best. So that's when my dad got ill. It was me and my sister. It was like, no way, you know, you can't, you know, you got to be there for him.
Oh, absolutely.
And he had it for 4 years. So then we'll go back. So then, when he got, it's been like 4 years since he passed away now.
All right.
So, and I had these riffs, and he would always ask me what's going on with the music and this and that, even when he was ill, until the very end, because the dementia really took over. But so when he passed away, I was like, man, you know, that was it. It was time to get back. And my daughter is older, and my dad would want me doing it. So it's like, man, I want to put out some records, you know. That's the point I'm at. I don't, you know, doing tours and stuff. if it was tours with this, it's great. But to go play with someone else and doing their music now, I'm not really, after I got out of Ozzy, I was not really down to do that unless I would have played on the record.
First of all, I got to say one thing, just listening to you. Just an incredible amount of respect, because anybody who puts family first instead of the sports cars and the money and the tours and the glitz and the just ultimate respect. I mean, taking care of your daughter is it's unmatched. You can't match that. And of course, taking care of your sick father. I mean, there's no question about it. It has to be done. So
yeah, and I mean, all with my daughter. I mean, she's the most important thing over this music, anything. So I mean,
agreed. And my daughter's the same age. My daughter's 11, and
yep.
As a rock reporter back in the day, I used to go out on tours and I used to follow bands. And when she was born in 2003, if the band's not playing in Montreal, I'm just not traveling for it because I have to be here, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Just before we get off of Randy, just what made him unique? Because here we are in 2015. He unfortunately passed away many, many, many years ago, and we still talk about him, and we still have people that are teenagers that were not even born are influenced by him. What made him so unique? I mean, you had this one-on-one time with him. What was it?
He was, let me tell you, especially for me being 16, he was the perfect guy and I'm not into idolizing him, but he was a perfect guy to look up to. And he was just such a great role model. He put things in easy ways for me to understand it. When I left that lesson, he made sure that I knew what I was supposed to be working on, and he really made you want to make him proud. So you'd get out of that lesson, man, and it was just like you were working 24/7. You were working on that stuff that he had showed you, and he was just such a great human being and just the most amazing player. I mean, he would be doing stuff in the lesson stuff that you just were blown away with,
Mm-hmm.
And he was truly, he was a student of the guitar too, man. He was trying to better himself all the time. Just really great play. And the last time I saw him, he had done the tours and he was on break. It was around Christmas time, and I was going it was the Sherman Oaks Galleria. It was a mall. And I was going there with my mom, and he was walking out, and and this is the type of guy he was. I'm wanting to know everything about him, and he's asking me, do I have this Les Paul still, or what's going on? Asking me about me, and I'm wanting to know about him. And then the last thing he said to me was, when we're done, he turned to me and goes, "Learn your diminished." And I didn't know what diminished. I'm like, what the heck is diminished? So if you listen to some of these songs, man, there's a lot of that diminished stuff in there, like even in Fragile, that solo in there, and it's all really, I try and the spirit of Randy, like Am I One? When you listen to that song, that's a song that if I was to be writing for Ozzy or the direction, that's exactly the direction I would have wanted to go, and it's got that spirit of Randy in there, but it's still being me. He would want me to be myself, so you always got to try and, you got to do, take all the stuff that you learned and then, try and, create your own style.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too far away from Farmikos, but I do want to ask you, you've been in the unique position where you've professionally played the stuff that Eddie's done and the stuff that Randy's done. Is one more complicated than the other? Is one better than the other? What is it about those two guys that makes them so special? I mean, playing Crazy Train compared to Panama. Can you?
Oh man, I mean, they're both just up there for me. They're both just incredible. I mean, and I really have that. Well, I had that Randy, just the vibrato and the technique, like the alternate picking stuff. So I was really influenced by all that, and then we're getting turned on to all the Van Halen, which I was into back in the day, but really having to learn it. It just was, man, just a great experience. And the guys that did my amps, Jose, I met when I was, okay, let's go way back again. When I was in my very first band, Tariff, the singer brought me to meet Jose that was working on Eddie's amps back then. I had 5 heads that are modded by him, and Jose passed away. He was in his 70s a few years ago. Anyways, And one of the times when I was there, Eddie, pulled up, came in there, and I was blown away. Got to see him, talking, interacting with Jose, and I still like Mean Street. I'll throw that up when I'm getting my guitar tones in the studio,
right?
Just hear just to balance out, to make sure my mid range and stuff is up there with it. We'll put that track on, and I'll listen to it. I'll start playing it on my amp, even though I'm doing a different style. This music is different than that. But man, I'm really influenced by that sound too.
Yeah, it's a great sound, and
yeah. So both of those players, man, they're both just. Man, we're lucky to have both of them out there, music from both of them.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, the new Farmikos album is full of nice guitar riffs as well. And then, let's not avoid the obvious. Ozzy Osbourne, 1995, you are called in to replace Zakk Wylde for the Osmosis tour. How does Ozzy find you?
I think Mike Inez recommended me. A couple of people recommended me, but Dean Castronova that played drums on the Osmosis record.
And a great guy. I interviewed Dean recently, and I'm going to go hang out with him in Montreal when Journey plays here.
Yep.
His new band, Revolution Saints, bloody fantastic.
Yeah.
Great
I know
guy.
Doug too pretty well.
Yeah, Doug.
Yep.
Boy, that album is just a melodic rock piece of heaven. I mean, really.
Yeah,
is.
great. Yeah, and Dean's an amazing drummer too.
Singer.
Oh yeah,
who knew?
Singer.
Who knew?
Yep.
Right? Yeah, who knew that the drummer is such a great singer? So Dean decides to recommend you or introduce you.
Yeah,
to
he
Ozzy?
called me. I actually got calls on it at one point, but I was at that when they were looking, and when they started looking, I was doing a band called Dogma that we had to change our name because there was another band in New York that had it. And we had got management. We were starting to do demos for Warner Brothers, and I was totally into doing it. But then, like 6 months later, they were still looking, and I got a call, and Dean came down, and I'm trying to remember, but he came down, and I don't know if he came with Sharon the first time, but then I think she came one of the times after, and then they brought Ozzy down to the rehearsal, and like maybe a week later, I went down to another rehearsal place, and I played. I did I Don't Know, Bark at the Moon, Crowley, and maybe Crazy Train, and Mike Inez was the one that did the audition for me there, and Randy Castile was playing the drums.
Wow.
And it was great, man. I got to I was sitting there getting to play, and Ozzy was standing right there and singing, and then watching me do the solos and stuff, and then they there were some people from the office there, and they just said, he came over and shook my hand and said, "Welcome aboard." And then I had to go. I knew the drill after that, from the Dave thing was like, oh my gosh, I got to learn so many songs.
Yeah.
So, and then I went back from there. I went with him to shoot guns, which was a trip. He went to some gun range, and then from there on, I was learning a bunch of songs. And then we had like 3 weeks of rehearsal, and then bam, we were off doing shows. So the first bunch of shows that we did, I was still, in South America, I was still, working the songs out.
I know, and all of a sudden you're in South America playing in front of what, like 100,000 people?
Oh, you're doing those soccer places, yeah. It's like all those Monster Rock stuff. You're like, oh my gosh,
And
so every situation, like doing the Dave thing, and it all prepares you for the next step. It's been a great experience. Like those 2 gigs for me. I mean, I'm so grateful to have done them, and man, I mean, those are 2 gigs that, for a guitar player, you just go for it, man. There's no saying no to that anyways. It was a great experience. But I always, when we were doing the Ozfest and all these other tours, I'm telling you, I always envied the bands that were kind of opening, that had been doing their records. Like I remember with Dave, Extreme was out there opening up for us, and Cinderella, and man, and I got to know all the guys in those bands, and it just always, and then the Ozfest, the opening acts, I always, from the very beginning, wanted to be putting records out, my own records, and getting to do it, but for some reason, getting all the personalities in these
Well, let me
bands.
ask you then, do you have regret? I mean, you had your own bands going on, and then you had these incredible opportunities come up. I mean, we're talking Ozzy. We're not talking opening for, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
Do you maybe regret the path that your career took? Do you think maybe you
Oh
should have just?
no. I mean,
Okay.
I totally embrace it. I mean, it was great. I just wish I would have now. I mean, it would have been great but everything happens for a reason, but it would have been cool to have been putting records out. Like I see Zach, with the Black Label Society, man, he spits a record out every year, man, which I so respect that. And that's, such a, wish I would have been putting records out, in the past, but, just the way it happened, happened. Like it's doing after we did that Osmosis tour, that if I was, that was the kind of the period, like the first 2 years of me being in Ozzy, when I look back at it, because I had a bunch of riffs and everyone's excited, and I wish we could have done something then. But then after that, there was a couple of Ozfests. There was times off. There was, he went and did Japan and Australia with the No More Tear lineup in 98, right around then, and he did a Black Sabbath thing in 98. So, there was times where, you just didn't know, if you were, what was going to happen. You just did when I got calls to do the tours, and then you would do it. That's been my biggest experience with it, has been the touring with him.
Yeah, it really has, because when you look at the production, only 2 songs came out: a studio cut, "Walk on Water," and of course the live version of Perry Mason.
Yeah, and can I say that too? The "Walk on Water" one. I don't even know really. I mean, that doesn't, for me, represent me at all. For one thing, I didn't write the song. For another thing, I was bending some chords in there. I don't even know what else really, they used or what. But it was just, I went in the studio and did a couple little things, but it was not, something that. It's cool, but not, it wasn't really, anything that I had written.
When you look at the Ozzy guitarists, Jakey Lee, Zakk
Yep.
Wylde, Randy, and even Tony Iommi, even though he's not an Ozzy guitarist, he's a Sabbath guitarist, obviously. You didn't really leave anything behind. Like there's not an album of Joe stuff. Do you sort of bemoan that? Do you wish there was, or it is what it is?
Of course, I would have loved to have by the time we were writing for
Down to Earth.
We got me and Robert got 3 songs on his record, on one of the records, but
right, Down to Earth, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there was a bunch of different writers. I mean, one day, there was so many different people, sending in songs that, for me, it's cool if I wasn't going to get to, get in the room and all of us, come up with something. If it wasn't going to happen that way, it's okay, because I don't want to, like the Walk on Water song, it's not really.
It's not
represent you, especially at that point in my life, where like this Farmikos stuff. I like. There's nothing I would change on anything. I mean, I back it all, and so it's all good. And the bottom line is it was Ozzy's band, and I have total respect for Zach, and he has a great, it's such a great chemistry with Zach that, man, there's no. I had no bad feelings, to have Zach, and I love what he did on the ones that I had written.
Right.
And it's funny. With the last Ozfest we did, Black Label Society did some shows, and man, Zach was really just a really warm and such a cool person with me. Really made me feel welcome. And I'm up there playing, No More Tears or Mom, I'm Coming Home, and he's, over there on the side, which, it's still strange,
He's bopping his head along to it, yeah.
Yeah, and we're doing Suicide Solution. He's coming over to me and, gave me a swig of beer. He is a great guy, man, and he really made me feel welcome. But so I have no issues with those, with Zach doing the record or whatever. It was no problem. And we tried. I tried to, come up with as many.
Hey, at least he kept the 3 songs, right? Junkie and what was it? That I Never Had, and Can You Hear Them? So hey, I guess the question is, if Ozzy called you and said, "Come out for a show and play," would you? I mean, there's no hard feelings.
Oh, there's none at all. No,
Okay.
there's nothing.
Because he has
No.
he's got that show coming up in Japan where it's going to be Ozfest with Ozzy and friends. If he decided to call you up as a friend, you would go out and play Perry
Yeah,
Mason.
I mean, my main thing though. I mean, I've got such a great thing going now with Robbie too that I really want to, got to make this thing happen.
Yeah, so let's get back to that. Then Farmikos, is it going to be, I mean, is it difficult these days to get noticed because the record business is sort of in disarray? Everybody's talked about that. You can certainly put an album up on Spotify, but the trick is to get people to find it.
Yep, yeah.
On Spotify. It's nice that it's there, but if it's in the deep dark corner, it doesn't really matter. So what do you have to do to get a band off the ground?
Well, we've been lucky. I mean, we started putting those teasers out. Have you seen them on YouTube?
Yes,
the ones
I have.
And that's really helped us. And I have a friend, Terry Mays, that's at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the animation department at Disney, and he comes down and shoots us and been throwing those up. And that really has helped spread the word. And then Eddie Trunk, I saw him 2 years ago on Christmas at a Yankee Lee show. And then I started sending him songs and he started playing them. And what we were doing is we were kind of releasing them like every couple of months. We'd pop a song out digitally.
Yeah, I saw that, because if you go to iTunes, there's not one Farmikos album. There's like 45, and it's like, wait a minute, it's like a single.
Yeah. So that's the way we were doing it, and it was growing and spreading. And it's just got to keep on. Luckily, people seem like they're really digging it, and they're telling people, and it's put it this way, it's real do-it-yourself, and it's real grassroots, and we're we have no big machine behind us, so it's been happening organically, and it's been really it's been spreading great for us.
Do you want to get out and tour?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're at that infant stage where it's got to get a little bit more popular, so we can go out and do it for real, and that's why I'm working on these next ones. Maybe it's going to take me doing another record, and then would people, it gets a little bit more popular with it, but it's spreading, and we're trying to get it out there as much to people. If anybody hears it and they're digging on it, that's what they got to do, is just turn someone else that's into that type of music into it, play it for them, and tell them to go look at our the teasers that we're doing. I'm going to do a bunch more on the next one, and just keep going the way we've been going. We've got some offers from some labels have contacted us.
Wow. Okay, good.
But I don't I don't know really what they're going to do more than what we're doing now.
Well, yeah, and let me ask you this, let me pose the question this way. I've had a chance to hear the album, and I dig it. I think it's great. But for folks that don't know you, maybe they were David Lee Roth fans, maybe they were Ozzy fans. They go, oh well, it's just a guitar guy. He's going to do some instrumental nonsense.
Yeah.
What are people who don't know and who've listened to this interview? What can they expect? What is Farmikos?
Well, see, I'm a team player. I've always loved bands. I'm old school with it still too. I love like that recording on the 2-inch machine. I love the natural aspects of it, and it's playing from the heart. I mean, everything that I could stand by everything on it, and I love having acoustic song on there, and I love having heavy songs on there. I just write and try and write the best riffs and songs I can, and then that's what I do. So I really I think people it's got great vocals on it. It's got great the grooves on it, the bass, the drums. Man, the guys that played on this they're all monsters too. So I think it's got something for everybody, really.
Yeah, it really does. And who was the drummer on this? Was it Tishy?
No, well, you know who Brooks Wackerman is? He plays in Bad Religion.
Oh yeah. Okay, and you also had
Ken Schock.
Right.
Do you know Ken Schock? He played on 2. He played on Fragile, and he played on Am I One, which the drums on there are amazing. But he's in a band called Candiria, they were around a few years ago. If they're from New York,
I remember them. I was sent sample music from them too for interview ops and stuff like that. Yep.
He's incredible. So it was him on that, and then Roberts did bass on like 7 of the songs. So, and I've got such a great chemistry with him. Just we play off each other really, really cool.
Yeah,
So
Trujillo is fantastic. So
yeah.
now the next album that comes out, is it, you said you're working on 5 songs already.
Yep.
Is it more of the same? Is there some kind of growth? Do you go in a different direction? Sort of
Well,
what do you do?
I think there's a lot of growth. I mean, I'm always going to push myself. I always want to kind of
Right.
keep pushing myself. But yeah, like this, like I told you a couple of weeks ago, I came up with this idea that, man, it's really, I mean, I could picture it live. It's really just got a great, heavy, sludgy, just really cool. This one could be another 8-minute song. I wish I knew a name for it so I could tell you so you could remember it.
We'll just call it the 8 minutes
when I record it. But it's really it's got a lot of room. It's a lot of breathing, a lot of space in it. So it's real heavy, but with a lot of space. And then I've got up tempos. I got a whole bunch of stuff. So it's just gonna get in there and start doing what we do, like we did on this last one, and it'll go a lot easier this next one too, because we're like a well-oiled machine with it.
Right.
And we get in the studio. I've been working with Rich Mauser. It's at the Mouse House. I've been working with him for like 20 years, off and on, and we got it down. Like, we get my guitar sound up in like 5 minutes, and we're recording, and we just got a great work. It's a really good team.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, we'll encourage people to go to farmikos.com, and that's FARMIKOS.com. And, head over to iTunes, CD Baby, and anywhere else, I guess, Amazon
yep.
And all those places have it. And very much looking forward to the second one as well. And I got to say, it was an incredible pleasure speaking with you today. There were so many silly stories of, the rabbit went back into his hole and he had a depression and he couldn't handle the fame and blah, 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 blah. But
yeah, it's funny because I had friends that had seen some of the stuff. Like, I'm really not a big internet guy, and
right.
they would come back and they get all like, they want to say something. I'd be, man, just let it go, man. It's no big deal. No, it is what it is. You just it's funny. You just do your thing, and then you come out with this, and luckily people are really digging on it, which has been
They're
great.
responding.
And I just want to keep growing, and I'll always be playing. So no matter what, I'm always on the guitar.
Yeah, which is good to know. I mean, listen, I had a chance to see you with Ozzy, and I thought you did a great job, quite frankly. And I, as a fan of Ozzy's, and of course of David's too, am disappointed that there isn't more Joe material. But again, it is what it is, and now we've got Farmikos, and
Yep.
all steam ahead. It's time to move on, and let's get Farmikos 2 and Farmikos 3, and hopefully he'll get out on tour. Hopefully he'll get to Montreal, and just
that's a great place to go play out there too. It's just
fantastic.
And a lot of great musicians out there too.
Mm-hmm.
Really great musicians. So I love it, man. I love to come play there.
Yeah, well, your buddy Robert played a place last year called Heavy Montreal, and of course with Metallica, and over 2 days, 80,000 people came out to watch, and Farmikos would have been a great band to have on in the earlier part of the day, warm up the crowd. It would have been, but hey, maybe next year, 2016, you never know.
Yep, you better believe it, man. It would have been fun. These songs, I'm telling you too, because sometimes we're talking right now. We might go in and do some videos, maybe the second week of May, for maybe Scapegoat and Am I One. But so I've been blasting them on the amp, playing, just standing up, and man, they just sound so. They're live. They're really going to sound great. So
yeah, there's a definite vibe on the album, and that's the kind of vibe that you got on those albums in the '70s when you first heard Joe Perry, or you first heard Ace Frehley or whoever. And this has got that vibe. It really, you're right. These songs live are going to be even better.
Yeah, you could stretch them longer. You could do whatever you want. It's really it's gonna be fun, step by step. But we got to get to that point, And we're checking out guys. If there's anybody out there that's,
well, if there is somebody out there, how do they contact you? They go to the Facebook page and.
Well, we've got on our web page. There's a contact page on there on our website. So they could send information and we could, we'll check it out.
Well, there you go. In fact, I'm on the page right now, and it says the email is contact@farmikos.com. So there you go. That's the way to find you.
Yep.
Joe, absolute pleasure. I'm very much looking forward to CD number 2, and I'm of course looking forward to interview number 2.
Oh yeah. Well, great, Mitch. Yeah, definitely. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. There you have it, folks. My interview with Joe Holmes with Farmikos is the new band. And, of course, he was with Ozzy Osbourne and David Lee Roth before that. This, of course, is brought to you by the Heavy Montreal Festival, taking place August 7th, 8th, and 9th at Parc Jean Drapeau. Slipknot, Faith No More, Billy Talent, Meshuggah, Nuclear Assault, Pentagram, tons and tons of band. And, of course, I do have 2 pairs of tickets to give away. Head over to the One-on-One Facebook page. All the contest rules are up there. Basically, you just have to Twitter and Facebook the Heavy Montreal poster and let everybody know that it's happening. And we'll pick a winner at random. That was hard to say, wasn't it, Bill?
Tongue twisters always happen when you're trying to do radio.
Well, I got to say, and I'll tell you why I was having a little struggle there, because Joe talked about having Randy Rhoads as his guitar instructor. And I know you haven't had Randy Rhoads as your guitar instructor, but how cool could that have been, right?
Man, I've dreamed of him being my guitar instructor. And actually, when I was, I did a bunch of gigs with Kevin back in the day at
Right.
Dubrow, and Kevin told me that Randy had like 70 students at a time going.
Yeah.
And that was about his limit. He said he couldn't fit them all in. But to think of what a workaholic that guy was. 70 students, and then you're also writing, you're recording, you're doing gigs. And this was before he got into Ozzy. But
No, with Quiet Riot, he was doing this.
Yeah. So I mean, Kevin has a lot of great stories of him and what a great guy he was. And yeah, I've taken lessons from Randy off of listening to his recordings.
There you go.
No question about it. And I've often sat down to write a solo and thought, what would Randy do? I mean, no kidding, because he just had the best of everything. He had blues, he had classical,
Yeah.
he had the metal, he had straight ahead rock, he had pop. So he had sort of everything in his playing, and because he was such a well-rounded musician, he knew how to play a bunch of different instruments, and he was able to put all that knowledge into guitar. It's a shame that he passed away. It's no
Absolutely.
telling what he would have done had he been still around today.
Yeah, but I mean, here it is, 2015, and we're still talking about him. I mean, the music he left behind, the legacy he left behind is just it's immeasurable. You can't even match it. It's magic, pure magic. Now, speaking of magic, Firehouse was recently in Indonesia, and you got to play in front of, let me think here, 75,000 people for one show?
Yes, 75,000 people we
Wow.
played in front of, headlining show
Wow.
in East Borneo, Indonesia, and it was one of the best experiences that we've ever had as a band in going overseas. And we got to meet the mayor of the town, and we also got to meet the sultan of the area.
Wow.
So it was really a wonderful experience, and the first time I had ever been playing and looked up and seen a helicopter drone right in front of my face, and the helicopter drone had the little camera on it that was broadcasting to the 2 screens on each side of the stage. So I'm sure that we'll see more of those in the future, but that was my first time seeing one of those, and that was in Borneo, Indonesia. So that was pretty cool.
That's interesting. If there were cameras, is this something you might put out as a DVD, or was this for like Indonesian TV or something? Or was it just...
It was just for the screens, for the live people who bought the ticket. And so, I asked the same question.
Wow.
They weren't taping it, but
Too bad.
I tell you what, that was one really fun show.
Hey, well, listen, last year, Heavy Montreal had 80,000 people show up because of Metallica. And this year, you've got Lita Ford, Warrington Dawkins, which are very familiar to your band. And, of course, you've played together before. Next year, it's got to be you. It's got to be you.
I hope so. I got my fingers tightly crossed.
Oh, yeah. Now, let's talk about our next guest, Michael Angelo Batio. Some have called him the fastest guitarist in the world. You know Michael a bit.
Oh, well, I've never met him, but
Okay.
I will tell you, not only is he one of the fastest in the world, or arguably the fastest, but he's also one of the cleanest. It's one thing to play real fast and get all the notes down, but to articulate them all like that guy can do, that is unheard of. Not only that, he can do it left-handed, he can play it right-handed. I mean, what kind of genetic freak is it that can do that sort of thing?
Exactly.
And the story I have about when I first found out about him was I was working in a music store. I was teaching and I was selling, guitars and stuff. And we got this series of instructional videos on VHS tapes for those of you who are old enough as we are to remember those.
I don't remember VHS.
You don't recall, yeah.
What are you talking
they're DVD,
about?
just before DVDs came out.
I barely remember those. I only know Blu-ray.
No, that's right. Well, we had this Michael Angelo video, and we put that on, and that guy played stuff that everybody in the store and all the virtuoso guitar players that were way better than I were looking at this going, how in the hell does that guy play like that? And I mean, this guy showed arpeggios and sweep picking long before it was even known how to do. This guy figured it out. So I got to give props to that guy. And actually, I know a guy who worked in a music store who did where Michael came in and did a clinic. And he said the guy was the coolest guy that he'd ever had as a clinician, and he played flawlessly. He just couldn't believe how good the guy was. So that's really cool. Please tell him I said hey.
Yeah, I will. And of course, the new album is Shred Force 1. It's the essential Michael Angelo Batio, sort of a greatest hits if you want. It's got Chuck Garrick of the Alice Cooper Band on it. It's got Todd Latour of Queensryche, Michael Wilton of Queensryche, George Lynch is on it, Chris Poland, formerly of Megadeth, Craig Goldie of formerly of Dio, Rudy Sarzo, Bobby Rock. You got to know Bobby Rock too, don't you? When he was doing the Vinnie Vincent's.
Yeah, Bobby's a cool dude. I knew him back then, and also done gigs with him with the Nelson guys. I mean, he's just the greatest, man. He's such a cool dude.
Absolutely.
Wonderful guy, awesome musician.
So why don't we sit back and listen to Michael Angelo Batio talk about Shred Force 1, his time with NITRO, and anything else under the sun. Here's Michael. Shall we just get started with Shred Force 1? Lots of special guests. Todd Latour from Queensryche, Chuck Garrick from Alice Cooper, Jeff Loomis. Tell me a little bit about putting the album together and what was sort of the prevailing concept.
Well, the concept was that I have 11 solo albums that have been released over the years, and I've done a lot of them independently. And when I signed with Rat Pack and the Rat Pack Records, the owner Joe O'Brien and I discussed, what do we do? Do we do a new album and we do this? And he thought we should, start the first album we do together should be like an essential MAB record, a compilation, and add some new tracks. So that's really where it started. And then then we have listed some of the guys from Metal Church and Queensryche. Sorry about my voice. I've been traveling so much, and it's freezing cold here in Chicago.
Oh, but, it's freezing cold in Montreal as well, by the way.
Oh, you're in Montreal. I've been there a lot of times. Yeah, you probably got a lot of snow, too.
Still got some snow on the ground, which is completely ridiculous. It's April, and, you generally when April rolled around, we had baseball with the Expos back in the day, and we had grass, and this year it ain't happening, so a little tragic. But yeah.
Same in Chicago. Yeah, I've been to Montreal many times. It's a beautiful, really beautiful city. And I've been there when the snow is, 2 and 3 meters high. So
yeah, I know.
But it's a great place. In Chicago, the weather's not so good either. But I lived in California for a long time, and they don't have any water. So we're not doing bad in the water department. So it's a trade-off.
Certainly not in Quebec. We have so many lakes and so many hydro dams and so much. We're good for water for now. So.
Exactly. Both of us. Yeah, we have the Great Lakes in both countries.
That's right.
But anyway, getting back to the album, that's how it started, an essential, Mikey record.
Right.
And we picked some of the songs just based on, what I play in concert, the most requested songs, and then I deferred the rest of the record to Rat Pack Records and Joe O'Brien, and I thought they did a great job. I always think that artists are sometimes the worst judges of their own music, and time again you hear of a number one hit song where the artist said, we didn't even want to put it on the album, or it's number 8 on the CD listing.
Right.
So, and then the guest stars, I have a lot of my famous friends, and we're all fans of each other, and I just tried to enlist as many as I could, and they all agreed. It's fantastic.
Now, the one guy that you enlisted is a former bandmate, Bobby Rock, who was, of course, in NITRO. What was it like having him play on the album?
Well, I've worked with Bobby on and off over the years. He is an amazing drummer, and we've always been really good friends. And he really gets what I do. I mean, because a lot of my music, sometimes it doesn't sound complicated, but when you actually play it, even a song like my song No Boundaries, there's mixed meters all over the place. But it just doesn't sound like it because hopefully the music flows. Bobby gets he just gets what I do, and he's super fast.
Right.
With single stroke rolls, so he can go and we double up on it. That's kind of one of our things. We match each other. It's just great. He's a fantastic guy, fantastic drummer.
And of course, he played with the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Did he tell you any crazy Vinnie Vincent stories?
A lot.
Care to share one or two, or are they too crazy?
Well, I can't really say it verbatim. I can only tell you that during the '80s, it was the era. It was the era where a lot of the bands started using click tracks.
Right.
And for the norm, we did, and Vinnie Vincent did, and I can only tell you that he was so insane about timing that it was basically turned Bobby into a drum machine because, if the beat, Bobby's a human, he's not going to hit it 100%. It could be 99.8,
right.
But then they had to constantly go over the drums to make the hit so perfect that it actually landed exactly on the click. Just things like that. He was real meticulous, and he was real nuts in the studio. I can't really say one particular story. Just Bobby just would shake his head, when he even mentioned his name. But they did 2 great records. So.
Yeah, they did. They were fun records, but the stories you hear coming out of that camp about the behavior sometimes, just like you said, makes you sort of shake your head and go, "Oh, all right." NITRO. Tell me a little bit about NITRO. You started the band in '87. The band had its moment in LA and in Hollywood and stuff. It didn't make it to Montreal. It didn't make it international. What happened with NITRO? Where did it go right and where did it go wrong?
Well, I think, in that era, we didn't really think about international. And we did go to Canada, but we didn't go to Montreal. We were really popular in Toronto, and we would hit Edmonton. We were only concerned about the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible to say it like that now, looking back, but our career was fine in the United States. And so, we were the U.S. was self-sufficient as far as when it came to NITRO. Our label never talked to us about touring outside the United States. They just wanted to keep us doing loops around the continental U.S. And then what we would do is we go from Detroit into Toronto. Then we would either go, we were an LA band, so we went west east. But I think it was a sign of the times. They wanted me to play fast. They wanted the singer to sing high. We had a 19-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed lead singer that had a body like a Chippendales dancer. You needed to have a certain look. You needed to have certain things. It was almost cookie cutter. It was almost like a mold that you had to fit into at that time. But they wanted the most extreme metal band ever. The biggest, the highest, the fastest, the loudest, everything over the top. So I was able to play that fast. It's not, when you hear my records before that, everything I'd ever done, I didn't always play fast. It wasn't what I grew up doing. My goal was never to be the fastest. I had that ability. So they knew that. I had the look. We had a super young lead singer, super young bass player, Bobby, the name guy on drums, me, that was the local LA guitar hero with 2 guitars, and they told us if we did the record the way they wanted to, the first album OFR, and I produced it, they guaranteed that it would chart in the top 200. And back then, you needed serious units to get there.
Yeah.
And it did.
Which is amazing.
Really that simple.
Now.
Yeah. But I literally was told to overplay all the time. That's the exact quote from the president of our record company. He goes, Michael, he stood in the studio and he goes, Michael, I want you to overplay all the time. And I remember I delivered some of the solos and some of the songs that I felt I didn't want to play fast. They didn't
fit.
And then I remember the president of our record company, Bob. It was through Rhino Records,
right?
But Rhino was owned by Warner Brothers.
Still is.
Rhino alone was worth $250 million,
right.
Just them alone. And they had Frank Zappa's discography, Todd Rundgren, Roy Orbison, the Monkees. They had everybody. They were a reissue company that was just rolling in money. And we were their label, their original label, us and a couple other bands. But I remember the president of the label comes in, and he's listening to solo, and he goes, Angelo, he goes, I thought you could play fast. He's like, what is this wimpy stuff? He goes, redo it, and let's hear some speed. So that's what it was about.
Yeah, and
where it went, what's that?
Go ahead. Where it went wrong? Yeah.
Well, I think we didn't make it go wrong. It's a little style of music called grunge. I mean, our singer was younger than Eddie Vedder, and we were labeled a Hollywood hair metal band. MTV in the U.S. refused to play our videos.
Right.
That's it. And not just us, Warrant, Skid Row,
everybody.
maybe
Tough.
a Motley Crue video. They said grunge is in, the LA metal scene is out, and that's it. And then our label completely pulled our tour support. So NITRO didn't break up because we were mad at each other. We broke up because we had zero support from our label, none. And it went from everything to nothing.
I do want to get back to your singer Jim Gillette in a moment, but you
I'm not a big. Honestly, I'm not really. I don't really like talking about NITRO in the past that much.
Okay.
I mean, I will, but it's not. It's so long ago that I've had so much in my career after that, and it was a few years out of a 30-year career.
Correct.
It's 10% of my entire career. So
okay.
I'm not really. I mean, you can talk about Jim. We're still friends, but.
Okay. So, but let me ask about the fastest guitar playing. You're known as one of the fastest guitar players. But where does it cross the line from going, how do you keep it into a song and keeping it either with melody and like how do you balance playing really fast and of course fitting it into songs where it makes sense?
Well, listen to Vinnie Vincent Invasion. All he did was play fast.
Right.
And their album did really well. I think I have a degree in music, and it doesn't make me smart. It doesn't make me better than anybody. It just means I finished college. But I studied music. I was I'm a student of music, and that's one of the reasons I think my career is going so well now. I have the ability to learn, and I'm always a student. I never think I'm so good that I can't learn something new. And this is what I learned.
Right.
Throughout history, there have been great musicians, and they always, for example, Franz Liszt in his day got slammed by the critics because why? He played too fast.
Right.
Oh my God. And so it's always been there since there was a great musician and a critic. You've had the critic say this about the musician. So when people say, like, for example, it's a great question that you asked, what is the fine line?
Right.
I don't see that line. In NITRO, even the song Freight Train, I worked out 80% of that solo. I played it usually the same way live. It flies by so fast but if you break it down and analyze it, which Japanese magazines have done,
right,
you realize, oh my God, there's all these chords going on in the background, and he's actually playing in key. And then he's doing some outside things along with it, chromatics. But I think the fine line is if your goal is to play fast all the time, and which I had to do. But my goal has never been to be the fastest.
Okay.
I was voted the fastest. I never voted myself.
Right.
When you listen to my former band, Halen, early in my career, we were on Atlantic Records. We
Right.
toured with Aerosmith. Our album didn't do nearly as well as Nitro, but we wrote, and I was the main songwriter with the lead singer. We wrote 3.5-minute great pop songs, metal pop songs, like radio style songs, not wimpy. And my leads fit the song.
Right.
That's how I grew up. So, and I think now, I have the ability to play really fast. But the line I think gets drawn where you have a player that sole interest is to play fast, and mine for virtually 90+% of my career has never been that. I play as fast as I feel the part I want to play requires. And so, and hopefully people understand that. Some won't. But I think people that, if you really listen, if you really break it down, slow down what I play fast, it's pretty interesting.
Right.
It's not just a bunch of mindless things. And I at least I hope people think it's interesting. Could be subjective.
Could be. Now, let's cast Nitro and Jim Gillette aside for a second. Let's focus on the future then. The album comes out in April, Shred Force 1. Where do we go from here? Are you going to start working on an all-original material album for Rat Pack or for anybody else? Are you going on tour? What does the rest of 2015 hold for you?
Well, I always do over 100 shows a year.
Right.
And that's combined clinics and concerts. I do guitar clinics for Dean Guitars. At one point, I was doing 70 to 80 clinics for Dean and about 20 to 30 concerts. That has completely turned around now. I've gradually been reducing the number of clinics, so I'll do maybe 35, 36 clinics this year and about 70 or more concerts. And so already this year I performed in Israel.
Nice.
I performed at over 20 shows in the United States, and I did a 26-city, 11-country tour of Europe already this year. And then I'm leaving tomorrow for San Francisco. I'm going to support Shred Force 1. I started doing some of the songs from the album in the beginning of the year, and I will support it the entire year. And I have literally 70 more shows I'm going to do combined. Well, I'm already scheduled to go to India at the end of next month, China, Brazil, and Europe, and then I finish up in the United States, and I'm trying to get back to Canada. I love Canada. It's one of my favorite countries on the planet. I've been there a million times, but it just seems like the last couple of years I'm playing everywhere but there, and hopefully it changes.
Yeah, we definitely need a show in Montreal. Just quickly, you mentioned China. When you go to China, generally they ask you to submit a list of songs you're going to play, and then they approve or disapprove of the songs. Have you encountered that yet, or are you aware that that's going to potentially happen?
No, I've been to China 11 times.
Okay.
I've been there so many times that the Chinese people gave me a name. I'm called Hands Without Shadows, and that's where I trademarked the name here. They said my hands move so fast they don't cast a shadow, and I'm really well known and very popular out there. I've invested a lot of time and energy in China. It's an emerging market, 1.3 billion people, but I play instrumental music, and I found over there it's not so much. I've never had anybody ask for my song list. But I found I'm not a political person.
Right.
I'm not like Ted Nugent screaming about the NRA or not that I don't have any comment about him either way. It's just I'm not a political person, so I'm not on the Chinese government's radar in that regard. I've never had a problem getting a visa. I get pre-approved. I'm on that list of where I can go through. Sorry, my voice. Where I can go through airport security. I get the short line because I travel so much. And but no, I've never encountered that. But I can say that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
No, I just know that Metallica played there last year or a couple of years ago, and they were asked to not perform the song Master of Puppets because of the lyrical content. And by the way, you mentioned Ted Nugent playing China. I'd love to see that. That would be hilarious, quite frankly.
Yeah, I don't know if he ever did.
I doubt he has, and I
doubt
doubt he wants. Right, and I doubt he wants to go. But man, oh man, that would be one hell of a concert. Michael, any last words before we wrap up?
Well, I just like to say, thank you for the interview, and I think that I'm really pleased with Shred Force One. If anybody wanted to know, it sums up my career. It's not. We take all 11 of my solo albums and pick cuts that we thought were really, really good, and I've got a lot of great guest stars on it, and I'm going to tour for it the entire year, and then in the meantime, I've got about 60 to about 50% of a new album already written. So I'm ready after this touring is done at the end of the year to have a new record out in 2016. But for this moment, 2015, it's all about promoting the album and doing as many shows as I can to support it.
Absolutely, and I'm very much looking forward to hopefully catching a show at some point, if it's not Montreal, somewhere else, and looking forward to all new music in 2016 as well. But Shred Force One, I'm telling you, what a star-studded event. I mean, Chuck Garrick, Todd Latour, the guys from Queensryche and all that stuff. Great stuff. Michael, great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. There you have it, folks. My interview with Michael Angelo Batio. The new album is Shred Force One. I certainly encourage everybody to go take a listen. And of course, don't forget Farmikos with JOE HOLMES. Great album. If you love guitar playing and you like taste and soul in your music, I certainly encourage you to pick that up. And I will remind you once more that this episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon is brought to you by the Heavy Montreal Festival, taking place August 7th, 8th, and 9th, and beautiful downtown Montreal at Parc Jean Drapeau. Let's see, we've mentioned Slipknot, we've mentioned Faith No More, we've mentioned Korn. Who have we forgotten? Gojira, Lagwagon, Arch Enemy, Marky Ramone is going to be there. And of course, Lita Ford, Warrant, Dawkins, and soon Firehouse, right, Bill? Someday.
Man, I sure hope so. That would be awesome. Haven't played Montreal in a long time. My most fond memory is that of Le Brick. What a great club that was.
Oh, Club Le Brick. That's going old school. There. That's
that's so old school. It's preschool.
That's preschool. Yeah, that poor thing is so. Unfortunately, it has closed down. But what a bunch of great shows in there. I saw Extreme, Peter Criss. There. Tons of great shows. But by the way, you've also got some music we mentioned before. Why don't we give that one more plug? Where can folks find you?
Man, thanks. My latest song, it's called Strong, and it's on my website, which is leverty.com. And if you can't make it over there, just go to Facebook and type in Bill Leverty. And if you want to, it's facebook.com/levertymusic. is my page. I answer all my Facebook messages and stuff like that, and so I love being in contact with everybody. So please connect with me. I appreciate it.
You don't have a team of 100 secretaries that answers it? You do it yourself?
I have that. I have that fictitious team, but I've actually trained a couple of unicorns to do it for me by way of a rainbow. So it's kind of working that way, and so yeah. Until they get really up to speed, though, I'm doing it.
You're doing it. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about Firehouse. Touring plans other than Indonesia? Anything in North America coming up?
Yeah, our next one is in Denver.
Good.
Coming up. We got a summer shaping up pretty well, and there's never enough gigs for me. I would love to be able to play 8 nights a week, but... it is what it is. I think we're going to be out probably, last year we did about 50 shows. This year I think we're on track to do about the same amount, and hopefully coming to a gig near you.
Yeah, absolutely. 8 days a week, as the Beatles used to say, right?
8 gigs a week. I just did a little rip-off and a little twist. I'm just trying to make that my own. But
there you go. And hopefully, yeah, there you go. And hopefully some new Firehouse music. It's been way too long, so let's.
It has been way too long. We really want to do, and we're going to try to get in the studio and do a song and at least knock one out, and then that'll be sort of the beginning of making an album.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bill, thank you for joining me today. Always a pleasure. You've been very supportive over the years. You helped out with the Kiss tribute, A World with Heroes. You did Dues. You helped with the Honeymoon Suite track, Reason to Live. You know, you're always saying good stuff on Facebook for me. You know, check this interview out. So just thank you. Thank you for everything.
Dude, you're my brother from the other mother.
That's right.
We're going to always help you out, and you've always helped me out, too. I can't thank you enough, Mitch.
Absolutely.
Appreciate all the one-on-one.
Absolutely. Thank you. And there you go, folks. Another episode of One-on-One is done. Join us next time as we will have David Coverdale joining us. Not a bad get, right?
That's pretty cool, man.
There you go.
He's awesome.
He's very awesome. There you go. Thank you, folks. Cheers.